So my name is Brendan Lombard. I'm a current elite trail runner for Team Essex, and I am a sports scientist. I am a Stellenbosch University graduate, and I've been in the fitness industry as well as coaching for well over 14 years. I am an avid outdoor enthusiast, and I love exploring new places and finding new adventures. And I've been really fortunate enough to run some of the biggest races in the world. Races such as CCC by UTMB. I've run the CSNL. Obviously Ultra Trail Cape Town being a firm favorite, but I've been really fortunate and blessed to have been all over the world and run some of the most spectacular races on the planet. My coaching career started out as a fresh university graduate, basically trying to set up my own business in gyms as a freelance trainer. COVID unfortunately happened and kind of lost everything as a lot of people did, and I decided to rebuild, which started in my garage. Some of you may remember a gym which is actually still going, called Bunker 11. Myself and another mate of mine founded Bunker 11 during COVID, and it grew ultimately into a really nice boutique space in the heart of Greenpoint. It is here where I coached many athletes, particularly with their strength and conditioning modalities. And I guess the rest is history. I learned a lot. I also implemented a lot of my own styles. I currently now am also a coach with Flat Rock Endurance, and I have a whole host of athletes in my camp which I work with, and some of them are elite athletes and some are athletes who are just starting out. I pride myself on putting the health of my athletes first, which includes a strong emphasis on strength and conditioning to make sure that the runner becomes bulletproof against injury and optimizes their performance holistically. So strength training is absolutely crucial for all runners. Reason being, it not only maximizes your performance, but it also mitigates your risk of injury. It is super important to make sure that you include this into your program. Twice a week is enough, with a strong emphasis on unilateral movements. Unilateral meaning, exercises that are done on one leg at a time. Running is a one-legged sport, and it should be trained as such. That's not to say that we should not include things like squats and deadlifts into the plan. It definitely has a place, but there needs to be a strong emphasis on unilateral movements. This will ultimately help with stability, proprioception, as well as strengthening. Proprioception is just a fancy word for balance, and of course we're really going to need that on the trails, along with stability, making sure that the body is able to handle landing in different planes and in different ways, for lack of a better word. But yeah, strength training, absolutely key. And like I said, twice a week should be enough for you. Strong emphasis on unilateral movements, but and I'll say it again, we can also focus on compound movements. But yeah, absolutely crucial to any plan. So a typical way that you could structure your week to bring in these two strength trainings is as follows, right? One of your days could be focused on unilateral movements. Again, unilateral meaning one leg. Things like single leg Romanian deadlifts, split squats, or rather referred to as Bulgarian split squats. You could do single leg hip thrusters, single leg step ups. All these exercises will be really great in sort of isolating one leg at a time. That way, we're not only training for the proprioception and stability, but we're also making sure that one leg is not taking on more load than the other, if that makes sense. Now, we'll make a point here of noting that unilateral meaning one leg. All right, just try and remember that running is a one-legged sport. Just remember that, and you can't go wrong. Okay, and then we also focus on core. Now, core doesn't mean that you need to do 100,000 sit-ups or leg raises and things like that. For runners, it's incredibly important to focus on core stability. So what is core stability? Things like planking on a gym ball or Bosey ball, as some of you may refer to it. Making sure that you're not just focusing on what I call the bro split or the aesthetic way of training your core, but actually training it to function as you will need when you are running, which is stability. Then your second day of strength training can be more compound based. Now, what are compound movements? Compound movements are things like push, pull, deadlift, squat, things that we do every day, all right, but are absolutely fundamental to movement. All right, so again, deadlift, squat, push, pull. So what are some of these exercises, all right, besides the deadlift and squat, which I already mentioned? Things like overheading press, all right, bent over rows, things like that, okay? Just because you run it doesn't mean you shouldn't train your upper body. All right, yes, we run with our legs, but our upper body does most definitely come into play when we are running. So again, I reiterate, 2 days a week, one unilateral, all right, the other focusing on compound movements, and again, our core. And the big word I want you to remember is stability. We're training core stability, not aesthetics. Naturally, aesthetics will come, but we want to function over, for lack of a better word, beauty over here. Right, next I want to chat about, the periodization of your training. A lot of the time we have athletes, especially athletes that are not coached, who just run, increasing their overall volume week in, week out, and eventually they end up stagnating. There is a science behind training for all sports, all right? But for running, what I like to refer to, and I like to implement a lot of my athletes, is something called a step loading pattern. All right, now how this works is as follows, all right? For example, in your first, what we call in the sports sciences mesocycle, which is usually about 3 or 4 weeks, we will start the periodization model as such. Week 1, you'll kind of build into week 2, into week 3, all right? And then instead of building up in your 4th week, or 5th week for that matter, what will happen is you will come down, all right? And ultimately, it is in this sort of down period when your body is recovering, adapting, and absorbing the training load. If one was to just keep building, you will eventually pick up issues, either stagnating performance, or what happens is you get injured, all right? Now, it is super, super important to periodize your training, all right? You are not going to see optimal benefits or optimal performance if you just keep running and never recovering. Rest is part of training. Recovery is training. You need to implement a holistic model into your training, which is so much more than just a physical activity itself. All right. When I refer to training, I mean things, or rather, it's based on a holistic model. Holistic model meaning it comprises of the following. It comprises of your sleep, it comprises of your nutrition, it comprises of the actual physical act of running, training, and strength. All right. It comprises of your stress management. It comprises of every extrinsic and intrinsic factor which contributes to your overall performance. Now I'm going to give you an example of what a typical week of training should look like. Now, quick disclaimer, this will vary between athlete to athlete. You need to take into consideration many things when building a plan for an athlete, okay? An elite athlete week is going to look very different to an athlete who is, whose goal is to finish a race and just get the job done, if that makes sense. Now, if you look at a typical week, keep in mind what I just said, but Mondays, I would usually say make a rest day, all right? Reason being is the weekends is kind of when people have the most time to train, all right? So you kind of want to use that to full advantage. Monday, rest day. Tuesdays, a quality day. Now, what is quality? Quality are sessions such as speed work, hill work, your strength training, etc. So again, like I said, speed or strength or hills. Okay, now important to note here, on your quality days you want to do whatever that session may be, speed or hill training, along with your strength training, but they need to be spaced apart. So maybe speed in the morning and strength at gym later in the afternoon. Now, the reason we do both on the same day is because if, for example, if someone did speed on Tuesday and then did a strength training session on the Wednesday, you're not giving your body enough time to recover in between training bouts, particularly because speed will stress the system as well as strength training. And enough time to recover is definitely needed in between training bouts. So I would not suggest doing speed on a Tuesday and then strength on a Wednesday. Rather group them together. And then you'll see what I've done here. Wednesday will be an easy day. So just an easy run. Okay, the fashionable word is zone 2, all right, but don't read into much into zones and all that kind of stuff. If you can just keep a nice conversation with someone while you're running at an easy pace. Now, Thursday again, we're looking at quality. Again, what is quality? Speed, strength, hills. Okay, again, we're grouping them together, whether it's hills and strength or speed and strength, but remember, spaced apart, one in the morning, one in the evening. Okay, Friday will be followed by rest, or if you are a more advanced runner, you could throw in an easy run, okay? Nothing more than an hour, I would say. Saturdays are reserved for our long efforts, okay? Long runs, What is classified as a long run? I would say in the case of training for the puffer, you're looking at anything longer than 2 to 3 hours. All right. Puffer being the distance that it is, you may want to do back-to-back long runs just to make sure that your body gets used to running on tired legs, and you're covering enough mileage and time on the legs to make sure that you will go the distance. But you could typically also throw in a rest day or do some cross training like jumping on the bike, going kayaking, swimming, whatever it may be. But just remember, this is a basic sort of template. Okay, it does vary between athlete to athlete, and a plan is highly individualized when you are being coached correctly. Right, now just a few notes from me regarding racing the puffer. Okay, first up, obviously don't start too fast. All right, you're going to be excited, you're going to be on the start line, and you're going to want to get out of the gates and get moving. But as cliche as it sounds, slow and steady wins the race, right? Ease into it and kind of be like that Pac-Man coming from behind. If you start too fast, you really do risk blowing up and turning your race into a proper death march. Right, change your shoes. Now what do I mean by this? Obviously for the first bit of puffer, you've got that stretch of road, okay? Do these in road shoes, but when you get to Ovalpat and you climb onto the trails, I think it is still there if I remember correctly, put your trail shoes on. Don't try to run the entire route in road shoes. You're going to need that grip when you go off-road, all right? And obviously don't do the entire road section in trail shoes. Trail shoes are a lot harder than road shoes and won't provide the kind of support that you need, and you risk fatiguing your muscles a hell of a lot quicker. Okay, moving on to nutrition. Now, general rule of thumb, we're looking at 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrate per hour. Look, in some elite performers, we've even seen carbohydrate intake in excess of 100 grams per hour. But, general rule of thumb, 60 to 90 grams carbohydrate per hour. How can you get this in? The use of bars, gels, food. It is a very personal thing, and you've got to do what works for you at the end of the day. Don't forget about your hydration. All right, sodium is important to mitigate cramping and proper muscle function. So make sure that you are getting enough in, whether it's in the form of, you can get them in tablet form, you can get the effervescent fizzies that a lot of brands make, which you can put in your bottles. And obviously remember to get in enough water as well. I recommend perhaps having a carbohydrate drink in one flask and your electrolytes in another. And then obviously your calories and carbohydrates in whatever form you wish. And then when you get to aid stations, make sure you're getting in enough water, or with your crew. Okay. Race strat. Race strat is important. Sit down, put pen to paper, talk to your crew. Make sure they know where you think you're going to be and at what time and where. It is important to have your crew also clued up on exactly what you're going to need at which point during the race. My advice is, get someone or two people that kind of understand what running ultra marathons require, as you are going to need them to be there at times where you're hitting a low to kind of pick you up again. All right. Save it for the trails. Now, what do I mean by save it for the trails? There is going to be that itch to want to really move well and fast while you're on the road, but save it for the trails. Make sure that you've got legs for that, for the tough climbs that are to come, for that long, hard descent down Platter Clip. That eccentric loading going down Platter Clip is going to destroy your quads. So save it for the trails. And then when you get off of Platter Clip onto Tafelberg Road and heading towards Signal Hill, that's when you really got to switch on, and the finish line is in sight, and then that's kind of the point of the race where you really want to start moving well. It's not far from the finish, but it is such a integral part to making sure that you finish strong and that you ultimately enjoy your experience out there. We have released an 8-week strength training plan for Puffer, which will be hosted on the Zlant app. New episodes will be released every 2 weeks. I highly recommend that you get your hands on a Zlant board, but if you can't, don't stress. You can get hold of something like a pillow or a Bozu board or something that can create a bit of instability underneath your foot when standing on it. But yeah, there will be a new episode every 2 weeks. It's going to be an 8-week Zlant strength training program designed by myself, and I wish you all the very best. Have an amazing time out there and absolutely crush it.